The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to the Powercode Inventory System training. Overview of today's training. The Powercode Inventory System will allow you to track and sort inventory items based on values defined by you as the administrator. Powercode will also supply you with an inventory log so that you can track the history of your inventory items. Other aspects of the Powercode inventory system are predominantly designed around items being assigned to locations, employees, and customers or web users. Summary. So the summary inventory page will allow us to see the inventory system as a whole. Examples of data that we can sort by and create are product types, different locations of items, different statuses of items, manufacturers, models, vendors, and equipment assignments. So, jumping into the Powercode billing server, you should see what we have up top on the universal tabs is that we have this universal inventory tab. This tab will allow you to add inventory items, add different product types. It will give you an RMA history, return merchandise authorization list, give you the ability to search for different RMA items. The page that we're going to look at today is the summary page, and this is kind of like the page we're going to deploy from. So this is our landing spot, and we're going to deploy from here, get into different sections of the inventory system. You don't necessarily need to understand everything that's on this page right now, but when we're finished, that is the goal. So on the left-hand side, really what we're looking at is the ability to see a summary of what types of statuses, locations, product types that we have in the system. In the middle, it allows us to view this information in a list as well. And then on the right, we can search for different products. We can do some advanced searching for maybe all products that are or all items that are in stock or assigned to a specific staff member. But this top section will deal with items in the system. The lower half of this page is going to deal with different products that we have in the system. So we're going to define products, we're going to add them in the system as items, and then we're going to assign the items to either customers, employees, or our inventory. The next piece of information we're going to talk about is adding an inventory item. So there's two places we can do this. We can either do this from our our summary page here where we're deploying from. Otherwise, we can come up to this universal inventory tab and then add the inventory item here. And before we do this, let me just jump back in my slideshow here. So add inventory items. We're going to start this training exercise with creating an item. During the creation process, we will discuss the product creation and the functionality of assigning equipment. Basic concepts of item creation we will cover is the location. So we're going to define locations, and on the right we have some examples. So shop inventory, maybe the location is the customer premise. Next we have different statuses for equipment, different conditions, so whether it's damaged, defective, new, and then different product types. So drilling down in on the locations, just being a little bit more specific, locations consist of places where inventory items are stored or located, and then again customer premise, installer's truck, shop inventory. So the idea is that items are going to start off in the shop, and then this is just an example. You can do this however you'd like, but an example I have would be items start off in the shop or the inventory, they're moved to the installer, and then finally moved to the customer premise. If the customer were to cancel with us or something of that nature, then that whole kind of cycle would go backwards, so from the customer premise to the installer back into the inventory. We do give you details showing you different things that you change on these specific items and products, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then statuses. So a list of item status types will output the current count of all items in a particular status. An example status would be deployed, on hand, lost, currently being tested, or whether or not it's been shipped. So if at any time we'd like to see all of our items that we have on hand, we can view that report. So this leads me back into the billing server. We're actually going to create the item. So just going back to that inventory summary page, again, we can create the item here and add new items. And we'll talk about this quick add item and multiple generic items in a bit. Otherwise, we can add the inventory item from that universal tab. So right when we get into that item creation page, the first thing we can see is this assign to section. So again, we talked about this a bit, but we can either assign this to the stock, a staff member, and this is going to be based off the web users that you have defined in the system. And in this case, I am logged in as the admin, so this particular item we're going to create and we're going to hand off to the admin. Otherwise, customer ID, so we can look up different customer IDs. If you know a customer's ID already, just go ahead and enter it in there, and then it's just going to populate on their inventory tab. And we'll talk about that as well. We'll get into a customer account. In this case, we're going to assign this to the staff member. And then the next piece below that is choosing a location. So is it at the customer premise, the installer's truck, inventory? Otherwise, we can create a new location. So whatever that may be. Just go ahead and enter it, and then when we save, we're actually going to take this information and then store it as an option in the drop-down after the fact. In this particular instance, we're going to say that a staff member has the item, so the idea is he's going to probably hand it off to the customer at some point. Again, these are just my examples. So we're going to say that it's on the installer's truck or the admin's truck at this point. Status of the item. Is it defective? Is it deployed? Has it been lost? Again, you can come in here and edit these after the fact. So if it was at a customer premise, it did become lost, or it's currently testing, you don't have to create a new item for each time it changes the status. Is it on hand? Is it processing? Has it been shipped? In this case, we'll say it's assigned. It's assigned to the admin. What condition is the item in? Is it damaged, defective, new, refurbished? Has it been returned? Has it been used? In this case, we'll say it's a new item, or it's in a new condition. And then product types. So product types are going to be defined later on when we create products, and that's usually what you're going to do first. But again, just for giving you a full understanding of this entire system, I wanted to create an item first. So we'll talk about creating products. After you create a product, it will be listed in the drop-down. So in this case, we'll just say it's a Ubiquiti access point. We can name the item. Maybe you have your own naming convention. Otherwise, just go ahead and name it whatever you'd like. Ubiquiti AP, maybe an abbreviation. Then go ahead and enter the MAC address for the item. And then you do not have to fill out this information on the bottom. So if it's a device that doesn't have a MAC address, maybe it's just inventory, you don't have to necessarily enter that information. Go ahead and enter a serial number. Call this one Ubiquiti access point. You can enter a real serial number if you have one, and then cost. Say that this device costs $150. And then any notes you want to populate with this item. So this item is assigned to the administrator, or it's damaged or it's defective. So after you've entered all of that information, that's really the process of creating an item in Powercode. We're going to go ahead and save this information. Now it brought me back to that landing page, that summary page. I'd like to see that this was actually added though, so I'm going to view all my inventory items. And then I did add an access point earlier as well, so now I have two of them, as you can see here. It is assigned to the staff as the administrator. Here's a serial number, that MAC address I just entered, and then the name of the item, what status it's currently in. So we do see that it was added correctly. The next piece we're going to talk about here is the products, so adding new products in the system. Add a product type. Before we add inventory items, it's a good idea to find the products that we will be tracking. The basic information we need to enter here will be the product's name, the manufacturer, the vendor, and then the product type. So we do have an item already defined in here. And then if we wanted to see what that item was, so I believe we called it UBNTAP, that doesn't tell me who we bought it from, who the manufacturer was, what type of device that is. So that's why we're defining this product information, so we can become very specific about the information that we're entering. So let's jump back in the system here and let's add a new product. We added the new inventory item here. We'll just come below here and add this new product item. So as we go through this, hopefully this summary page is making a little bit more sense on how we're navigating through here. And we'll do a final review of it as well. Adding a new product. So again, we're going to give the product a name. Ubiquiti AP. The model, maybe you have warranty numbers on devices, maybe you have model numbers you want to track. Again, it's not required. If you have any product codes you want to track as well, go ahead and enter that information here. And then the manufacturer. So in this case, I have Ubiquiti listed. You can create new manufacturers. So again, how we created those new locations, we just enter the manufacturer name on the right here. So as you can see, I entered Powercode. Now it's going to become an option after I create this device, and I'll actually create our GX226 in here. Who's the vendor? That's going to be Powercode as well. And then what is the product type? Is access point, BMU, a router? In this case, it is a BMU. We can enter the MSRP if we want, say it's 1500, and then we can save. So now we have this new product type listed in here. View all product types, and here's that GX226 that we just created. Here's the vendor, manufacturer, MSRP. So we can tell that that product was entered correctly. So now if I wanted to add a new item, again, we'd go to that product type, GX226, and now it's available. So let's go back to that summary page. The next piece we'll talk about is assigning or assignment types. So now we've created a product, we've created an item, we've handed off to the admin. We do have some items that I created before the training session that we have in stock, but now we're going to talk about how we're actually assigning this to the different sections of Powercode. So this section will allow you to assign equipment to users, stock, or customers. A normal assignment may start off in stock, move to the user, in this case installer Jake, and then finally end up at the customer's premise. So again, when we did create that Ubiquiti AP, we added it to the admin who I'm logged in as. So now I just want to go to my Michigan Bear account over on the left here. We're going to jump straight into the inventory system. And then here we don't have any pieces of equipment defined, but we do have assigned inventory. In this case, this account has a Linksys router and then a tripod. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a current inventory item. So it's going to show all the items that are assigned to me, and there's 2 of those Ubiquiti access points. Then we're just going to go ahead and assign to the customer. I'm going to go back to the Michigan Bear Inventory tab, and then you can see we do have this Ubiquiti AP. It's an access point, it's deployed, and then it is at the customer's premise. So now it would stay there. The customer ever calls us, says they're canceling or they're moving to a new location, we need to move this inventory item. We'd come in here and simply edit the device, now move it maybe from the customer ID back to the installer or into stock. Then we can also change any of that information as well. And then we do have a details section. So if we drill down into the details of this item, it's going to give us the cost of it, serial number, manufacturer, who the product is assigned to. status, location, things like that. And you can see any changes that have been made. So it was assigned to the admin, then it was assigned to staff. Inventory item was edited, so it does give you that basic information. Going back to that Michigan Bear account, there's one other item or one other piece of information that we can see on here, and that's that creating the RMA. So if you ever needed to create a RMA number, that return merchandise authorization number, you're able to do that through Powercode here, so it's going to be the next topic we talk about. So RMA, if at any point you have the need to create a return merchandise authorization number, or RMA, you have the ability to do this in Powercode. The process would consist of creating the RMA number, indicating once you've received the device, and then closing the RMA issue once you have a proper resolution. So let's create an RMA for that particular Ubiquiti AP. All right, so basically we're just saying create an RMA, and then it's asking us what status it's in. If this is the first time we're creating it, assuming that we're waiting for the device to return to the shop, so we'll say waiting, and then RMA reasoning, power issue, and then we can denote in here that we're waiting for it to arrive at the shop. Go ahead and save that RMA. And then it'll show us that RMA code that it had generated, give you a reason, show you what status it's in, and when it was created. We can also mark this as closed or being received, so going through the next steps of the RMA process. In the inventory tab at the top that we looked at when we first started this training session, we saw that we had the ability to add an inventory item, add a different product type. So we've already done 1 and 2. And then the last 3 sections here, other than the summary, is going to deal with that RMA piece. So what the RMA history is, like a list of all the items in RMA, and then being able to search for those RMA items. So let's go back to that Michigan Bear account. Going back into that inventory page, and now we see we have these 3 items like we had before. Below here we do have this RMA, active RMA below. So it's giving me RMA number, status, RMA code, the reason. I'm going to go ahead and view the RMA. I'm going to indicate that I received the device. Again, it would list on that Michigan Bear inventory tab as being received. And then I can also close this RMA issue. So if I go back to that account, inventory, now we no longer have the issue listed. So that's the RMA piece. Really after that, it's going to be a review of the summary page. So let's revisit the summary page with the information that we have now. So after we've seen the process of creating an item, creating a product, the summary page should be a little bit easier to understand. So again, inventory item section on the top here, products below, and then it would be the process of viewing all the inventory items. So we'll click on that. It'll show me all the items in the system, who they're assigned to, any serial numbers, MAC addresses, and then we can also jump in and see more information on the right. List of all product types, Linksys router, tripod, Ubiquiti AP, locations that we have defined. Remember, we only had 3: customer premise, installer's truck, shop inventory. Different statuses we had available. So again, just giving you the ability to just break this information down and see it quickly. So for example, I want to see all items in stock. Assigned to staff, and then assigned to customers. Same thing below with the products. List of manufacturers, models, vendors. I won't necessarily jump into each of those sections. And then we're just giving you a count on the left. So really, hopefully this is a lot easier to understand now that we've been through this training exercise. On the right-hand side, it's going to let us do a search for items. We can do an advanced search. So maybe we want to see any item that's assigned to a specific staff member that fits these variables that I set below. And then the last piece I want to talk about before we end the training session And then if you do have questions on any of the stuff in here, and they may come up later, maybe you'll want to play around with the inventory system, ask questions later, just go ahead and send your questions into support@powercode.com, and then we'll just answer them in the order that we receive them. The last piece I want to talk about here is adding different items. So we were adding items individually, but we do have the ability to quick add and add multiple generic items. So let's look at this here. So adding items, there are three methods of adding items. Add item, which would be a single item. Quick add would be adding multiple items with similar details. It'll make more sense when I jump into that page. And then add multiple items gives you the ability to set a quantity, basically. So let's look at that quick add of items. On the top, it's going to tell you that basically you can check the boxes on the left to retain the information that you have entered. So if I'm entering 5 Ubiquiti access points, they all have maybe the same name, the same cost, the same status, they're all going into stock. All I really want to update is the MAC address and the serial number. I don't want to have to go through and then redefine all this information constantly. So this is what quick add would be. So go ahead and set your locations, your product types, add the MAC address, the serial number, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add the item, and then right away it's going to leave all the other information. It's going to blank out MAC address and serial and then give me the ability to add another MAC address, another serial number, so quickly getting those MAC addresses entered. So that's the quick add feature. The other feature would be adding multiple generic items. So here we can state location, premise, item name, cost. We'll say it costs $19.95, name is BMU, and I want to add 7 of them. And maybe I'll add more details later after I have the 7 in the system. So as you can see, the inventory system gives the ability to add whatever items you'd like, however you'd like them defined. You define the manufacturers, the vendors, and then just the ability of assigning them to your users, your staff, and your stock. And then adding many of them if you need to, many items. Let's just take one final look at that summary page. So now hopefully you have the tools to navigate this section and add new items and add new product types. Any questions? Go ahead and email into support@powercode.com and we'd be happy to answer them. And if you have any suggestions, things that would make the inventory system better, things that you see that you may need in the system, we'd be happy to hear about those as well. So please send your suggestions in as well. This concludes our training on the inventory system, and thank you for your time.